Now the Carbinox is supposed to be the internet's toughest smartwatch, but we're going to put it through the ringer to really test it out. Now, how am I going to do that? I'm going to drop it from my drone, and if that breaks it, then we're done. If not, we're going to go to the mountainside and throw it off a cliff, and it survives that, then I'm going to take it and run it over with my 500 horsepower muscle car. And if it survives that, well, I guess it really is pretty tough. But of course, we're back here in the studio first because we have to do an overview of the watch itself before we can take it out and destroy it. But I'm going to explain to you exactly what the testing is going to be for the destruction and exactly what the overview is for the review itself. Now, the destruction coming up in just about 5 to 6 minutes is going to be 3 tests. And depending on how well it does in the first test, it'll go on to the second test, then it'll go on to the third test. Now, I was told by Carbinox themselves, this is essentially the strongest smartwatch on the market. And because of that, they said, you know what, run it through whatever tests you want to do, outside of hitting it directly on the face with a hammer. Now, I understand that. I mean, anything that you slam a hammer on the face, it doesn't matter how strong it is, it's probably going to crack or break it. But what we're going to do is the first test is going to be a drop test. Now, we're going to drop it from a variety of distances, which is going to be from, we'll say 3 feet, which is a standard drop test, all the way up to 150 feet. Now, you say, why chase 150 feet? Well, because I've already done the mathematical calculations for the terminal velocity of this watch. Now, this watch's terminal velocity is about 69 miles an hour or 101 feet per second, which means if I put it up at 150 feet, it's going to reach terminal velocity just before it hits the ground. And we're going to do it on the pavement. We're not going to do it on the grass because there's going to be bounce. We're going to do it on the pavement. Now, there's no reason to go up to 2 or 3 or 400 feet because once something reaches terminal velocity, it doesn't matter if it's 6 miles in the air or if it's 300 feet in the air, it's not going to go any faster. It doesn't really do any good. So if someone's like, oh, I'm going to do this, well, it doesn't really matter because, you know, mathematics are fact and you can't really get around fact. So we're going to do the drop test. We're going to do that from my drone. I have a drop delivery system on the drone, and we're going to drop it from a variety of distances all the way up to 150 feet. If it survives that, we're going to do the mountain test. Now, I live in the state of Alaska where there are mountains all around me. In fact, in the Anchorage area, which is where I live, the biggest city in Alaska, we're surrounded in a bowl of mountains. So we're going to go into the mountains and I'm going to find a cliff and just throw it off, right? It's entertaining for you. And it's a real world test of how durable it is. If it happens to smack into a rock or whatever, we're going to see if it survives then. Then if it survives the second test, we're going to run it over with my Dodge Challenger TA 500 horsepower muscle car. Now that you know what the tests are, let's hop into the actual review. Now, if you look at the wrists of most people, the Apple Watch is going to be the most popular watch on people's wrists. It doesn't matter if you're a high school student, a college student, if you work in an office building, if you're police, military, it doesn't really matter. Everybody wears an Apple Watch. I hate the look of Apple Watches, and not just do I hate the look of Apple Watches, but I hate what an Apple Watch is. An Apple Watch is just an extension of the phone itself on your wrist. And there's nothing more annoying than someone who is checking a text message or an email while having a conversation with you, and then they look at their wrist and you're like, what are you doing, dude? Well, this watch does offer the texting and things like that. But one of the things that drives me nuts is the Apple Watch is so good at just being a second phone on your wrist. And we as a society are already addicted to our phones already. And in fact, there's something called the phantom phone syndrome, which is where if you don't have your phone on you, you'll still kind of feel it vibrate in your pocket. You'll go to check for it and it's not there. It's sort of like phantom limb syndrome, where someone gets their arm cut off and they still feel like they have a right hand when it's gone. Same thing. We are so addicted to technology that I just don't like technology when it comes to smart watches. In fact, I don't own a smartwatch at all. This is going to be the first smartwatch I own. And the reason I like the Carbinox, not just that it is smart-esque, because it's not as good as an Apple Watch, but it's not meant to be. It's an alternative to an Apple Watch. It's a tougher alternative, and more so than it is like a smartwatch, as it is a fitness watch. And that's really where this thing excels. It does the basic stuff of calling and texting, but really what it does the best of for just over $100 is give you all the access to the health benefits, the health readings that a smartwatch like an Apple Watch would give you. So I'll give you an example of what it offers for something like fitness. Now here it is on my wrist, and you can see that it does have a basic smartwatch setup. I lift my wrist up to my face and boom, there is the watch face. Then a simple swipe to the left and it's the main screen, and it gives you your daily activities like steps, calories burned, and even a weekly report. Now, all this can be customized, and it can be customized through the GloryFit app. I don't really need to get into that because this is great on its own. The app, what it does is just allows an additional layer of customization for like the watch faces and stuff like that. We'll talk about that more towards the end. But the GloryFit app is great just for customization, but this watch is great on its own. Now, if you continue to swipe left, you can see that it has a sleep monitor that monitors your deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep, and awake time. Now, I can't wear a watch while I sleep, but if you want to monitor how well you sleep at night and it doesn't bother you to have something on your wrist, it's hard for me to wear retainers at night, right? Just to keep my teeth straight. Like I've never had braces, but just to keep them straight, I wear retainers. And it's tough. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and take them off. So it's tough for me to wear anything on my wrist. But if you want to monitor your sleep, you can absolutely do it with this watch. Now, continue to swipe left and you reach your heart rate monitor. Then you reach the blood oxygen level and blood pressure. Now, this is where I love this the most. I myself love to run. Okay, I'm gonna back that up. I don't love to run. I run because it's necessary. In fact, I loathe every single step forward when I run. But I know that cardio is important because I'm 40 years old and I know that my heart health is more important than my bicep size. So I will choose to do cardio over weight training. Now, do I also weight train? Of course I do, but I would choose cardio first. And someone like me who is a police officer by trade tends to have a high level of stress. Because of that, I like to monitor my heart rate, my blood pressure, which is the most important. I actually take lisinopril, which is a blood pressure medication, to keep my blood pressure at a low normal, because normally it's high. It's so high, it's hypertension stage 2, and it was almost in critical. But all that doesn't really matter. What I love about this watch is it gives me my blood pressure on the fly, which is really nice. Now, it's not super accurate. It's not the most accurate, but it gives me an idea of where my blood pressure rests on the day-to-day. And that's really important for me, who loves heart health, who wants longevity in life, to monitor. Now, if you continue to swipe to the left, you'll see that it has a weekly weather report, your contacts, and then you have options to add more widgets to your phone. You can customize this as much as you want. In fact, if you go back to the home screen and then you swipe right, which is a Tinder thing, apparently, I don't know, I've never been on Tinder, but if you swipe right, I think that's okay. You go to your widget screen, which actually looks kind of like an Apple Watch. Here is where you can select whatever applications are available on the watch. Now, you can go into GloryFit and you can add more or take away some. Really, this is just a glorified fitness watch that's super durable and super tough. Now, it does offer texts, right? Every time I get a text from my fiance, I look at my watch and I'm like, oh, she texted me. But what do? I take out my phone and respond. I don't ever do it on my watch. Then if I get a phone call coming in, it rings, I look to see who's calling, and I can silence it or not. One of the things that I really do love about the Carbinox is just how long it lasts. On a single charge, maybe 5 to 6 hours of charging, maybe through a short night, it's gonna last 10 to 15 days. To me, this is incredible, right? I know the Apple Watch, people have to essentially charge it every single night. Now, I have left this watch in my patrol car. I've worn it, I've taken it off, I've laid it around, I put it in my Challenger, I've worn it a little bit, I've tossed it in my patrol car again, and it's lasted for a long time. 10 to 15 days with normal use, this watch lasts. And not just that, but then you also have, if you're into sports, if you're into fitness, there's also different fitness things within the watch itself. There's workouts, there's interval training, there's other things offered within the watch. Again, this is more of a fitness watch as opposed to a smartwatch. Now, it wears just like an Apple Watch. It's not overly big on the wrist, and it's not overly small. Now, it does have a solid aluminum case, and it does offer a steel bezel, and it does have Gorilla Glass on its face. So when you hear all this stuff, you think, oh, well, that's pretty tough. So let's put it to the test and let's take it out in the field. So where we're going now is in a parking lot in the back of nowhere, and we're going to start doing the distance or the height test, the drop tests. And if it surpasses that, we'll head into the mountains. Now, I have no idea what it is because this is all going linear in a timeline. I have no idea what the outcome is. So we're going to do the drop test first. Then if we pass the drop test, we'll go to the mountains. If we pass the mountains, we'll go to the car. So I can't promise what's going to happen, but let's go ahead and roll into that. Now, we're starting this from basic drop tests first, right? We're going to do 3 feet, which is a standard watch drop test. Then we're going to do 5 feet, then 10 feet. Then we're going to go up to the terminal velocity that I already explained. Now, we're going to go to 50 feet, 75 feet, 100 feet, then 150 feet. There's no reason to go past 150 feet because if it survives that, it doesn't matter if it's 6 miles in the air or 150 feet. It's not going to go any faster, and it's really not going to matter. Now, the first test to drop it from the drone, I got a drop delivery system on Amazon that cost about $40. Now, the one I'm using here actually doesn't have a secondary remote control. The way it works is it has a sensor in it, and you rotate this for 10 seconds, and supposedly, haven't tested it yet, supposedly drops the package, the string, or whatever you have attached to this tiny little servo. So it can technically be done at any distance that you please. So let's get it up in the air. So just so you guys know, this does have a rope length of about 3.5 feet. So I'm going to make sure that when I go to 50 feet, it's going to be around 53 to 55 feet. So don't judge. I know exactly what I'm doing. Just drop from 50 feet, not a problem. Okay, so that was from 55 feet. Now it didn't drop where I wanted it to because this thing was swinging around so much it kind of just fell off when I started to get it in position. We're gonna go up to 75 feet. Okay, I don't know if you see right there. Boom. Okay. I had a lot of hopes for this. Maybe I had too many hopes. So clearly, 80 feet onto solid concrete is too much. I guess that's it. Let's wrap it up. Okay, so I will admit that that was not a true and fair comparison of how tough the internet's toughest smartwatch is, right? I mean, it dropped from 80 feet directly onto concrete on its face. Of course it's gonna break. Now, what are my true thoughts on this watch? Well, I've worn this as a police officer for like 3 weeks now, and there was nothing wrong with it. It was perfect. Right? It was perfect. You saw me drop it from 3 feet, from 5 feet. Then I dropped it from 50 feet, and there was still nothing wrong. Now, if you guys think there's a tougher watch out there, then I would love to know down in the comments below, because I don't think there is one. Most watches, especially something mechanical, is going to break if it's dropped at 5 feet, especially directly onto its sapphire. It's going to dislodge something. It's going to break something. It's not going to do very well. Right? If you're talking about something like an Apple Watch, a Samsung, or even something like a Garmin, they're only so tough. And I can tell you that though this is broken, and it really is pretty broken, I think it held up pretty well. I knew it wouldn't, 150 feet in the air, I knew that anything and everything is going to be destroyed at that. I really did hope that I could run over it with my Challenger here, but we'll have to wait for another day and another tough smartwatch to review. Now, what do you guys think about this video? Do you think I was unfair in my testing? Do you like it? Do you hate it? I did miss a couple shots with my phone here when I dropped it one time, but you should have seen it at least from the drone point of view. So I got a lot of videos coming up in the future, a lot more watch reviews, maybe some more smart reviews. I don't think Carbinox is going to be sending me another watch anytime soon, but just maybe. They do have quite a few different watches. I am a fan of what they're offering, especially for the price point. They do, like I said, offer different models. This is the Vesta, and I'll be honest, I'm actually kind of gonna miss it. I was using it to run every single day. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next one.